Hello, I'm Abby, and today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite cards, which is the Holy Fool, or just the Fool, depending on which, I guess, deck you have. And I thought I would do this in a more reflective sort of way. I think that's kind of generally how I'm going to be reflecting on these cards. So there's a spiritual practice called Lectio Divina, which is one of my favorite practices because it really helps you dive into usually some text a little bit deeper, but I thought I would try to do a modified version and do it with a picture. So there are four steps to Lectio Divina. There's kind of the where's the text, or what is the picture, then kind of literally what is the text saying. In this case, I'm going to be like, what does the card traditionally mean? Then there's kind of like a what does it remind you of, and kind of what does it call you to do. So first is a what is the card, and the card is the Holy Fool, and this is my particular card from the Byzantine deck. And so the card is usually a picture of a young-ish man who is taking a walk, and he usually is taking a walk and is about ready to step off a ledge. If you'll kind of see it in this card, he's about ready to step off a ledge, and he doesn't know it because he's kind of looking up. Usually his head's in the cloud, or he's in this picture like looking at a dove, and it's kind of, he's not really present in the moment, or if he is, he's present in a very different non-physical sort of way. It is the first card in the entire tarot deck, and it is part of the major arcana, which is kind of like the bigger picture sort of stuff in tarot. Not the everyday life things, but the overarching story or the overarching themes in the life. So what does this card traditionally mean? It often kind of means, in a sense, kind of being foolhardy, because that's the Fool, not being present, maybe a bit childish. I've found lots in readings that kind of calls people to one of two things. It's either a reminder to trust in a situation, take that leap forward before you know what's going to happen, before you know there's a ledge, just trust that you are going to be caught. Kind of what this Fool is doing, he's assuming that everything is going to be fine. He's always been taken care of. He will always be taken care of. And that's one thing this card calls you to do, is to just trust that things are going to be fine and to take that leap. The other thing that often I found calls people to do is, I guess, similar. It kind of calls you to be a bit more childish, a bit more foolish, enjoy life, not to be worried so much about, job and bills and chores and all your responsibilities. It kind of calls you to have more fun, to enjoy life, to not get wrapped up and caught in all of those things, which, while are important, they shouldn't be your life. So that brings us to, what does it remind me of? So I was thinking and meditating on this for a long time, and the image that kept coming back to me was when I was a child. We had this state park about 40 minutes away, and it's still one of my favorite places in the entire world. And my mother would take us for walks through various trails in this park. And there were trees and there were rocks and there were all these really cool things, and we would go for walks, and it'd be like, maybe a half a mile trail, and it would take us 1 to 2 hours to walk through the entire trail because we'd have to stop and look at everything and ask questions. And then at the time it was so loud, you could go climb on the rocks, and we wanted to go climb on them and discover new things. And it was this blissfully just time of wondering and experiencing and loving the world that we were in, and sometimes doing really stupid stuff, like getting really close to the edges of the rocks, at which point my mom would kind of come back, kind of grab us if we were ready to like run off of a rock, which is maybe why this card popped up. But there was something very innocent and very charming and very childish, enthusiastic about that memory. And I think it connects somehow to this card, and that the card calls you to kind of re-embrace that childishness. I think the card is also often portrayed more as like foolishness, but I think there's a level of innocence and just wonder that can kind of go along with that child experience. And those were beautiful times, and those were times I want to like recapture, which brings us to the fourth part, which is what does this card call me specifically to do? And it's the thing I always struggled with. And so I love this card and I hate this card because it calls me to re-embrace that innocence and that wonder and that foolishness and just trusting that things are going to be okay. I always like want to plan everything and have everything figured out and just right, you know. Very responsible, but you can't always do that, and it keeps you from really living and experiencing life. And so this card specifically calls me to embrace that foolishness. So after those reflections, think about kind of maybe what does this card call you to do in your life in these particular times. And maybe it doesn't call you to anything, that's fine. But if it does call you, I'd love to hear about that. Put it in the comments, shoot me a message, I'd love that. And I will be back in a week or two with another card reflection, probably with Lectio Divina. Thanks.